All right, we are live. Let's get started.
Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. So this is great, and thank you all for your persistence. As I was saying to Rachel before you two joined, that well, two things. One, you can see that my camera isn't working for some reason tonight. I have no idea what that is. And secondly, so you're just going to see my face and hear my voice, but I'll be doing a little dance out here. You just can envision me bopping around. And the second thing is that we test and we test and we retest, and then we get to the actual Hangout and something happens. So who would have predicted that GoDaddy, not GoDaddy, but who would have predicted that the entire Mighty Bell site would be down? And so thank you for being persistent, and hopefully some other people will join because Caitlin has emailed them all, and if they do, we will just go with the flow. So why don't we start with introductions? And so I don't know, do you all already know each other? Or do we?
Well, is it Melissa?
Yeah.
I met you at the last town hall, I think. I said hi. We introduced. But yeah, we don't really work together, so we don't know each other very well.
Okay, that's great. How many employees are there in all at GoDaddy? You know?
The whole company?
Yeah, the whole company. Just
about 5,000.
Okay, all right.
Wow.
Yeah, it would not be logical for you all to know each other.
Well, we are in Scottsdale together, but yeah, that's just the entire company. We have a lot of offices.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, Michelle, you want to just introduce yourself?
I'm Michelle. Melissa and I know each other, so I work for the front of site team, well, the sales team, not front of site directly, but so writing automation to test it.
Great. Well, thanks for coming back, because you were the intrepid soul the last time. We appreciate your coming back. And Melissa, thank you for joining, and Rachel, thank you for joining tonight. Why don't we just start with just a general question about whether there are, if any of you have reflections or questions on week one, and we'll look at that. And then I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what we're doing in week two, and just totally have open mic for any questions or any things that you all would like to discuss, either content-wise or any other issues that Caitlin can answer.
Yeah. I just want to say, really, as far as reflection and making me stop and think about what I'm doing as far as, life and work and everything, I think it's bringing me to intention. That's what this whole thing is bringing me to, right? And I don't know that I've been focused on intention before. So I feel like I've just been kind of wildly flailing in the wind, and to, some of your book, Gloria, just, things are just happening to me, right? So I feel like this whole thing is driving me to change that, and feel like, want to live with intention rather than just let things happen, right?
Thanks. The more I work on this whole topic, the more I think the concept of intention is maybe even more important than the concept of power. I'm not ready to give that up yet, but the more important I think intentionality is. So thank you.
For me, I'm starting to have, this past week has opened my eyes a little bit. I'm having more awareness of men dominating certain situations, and I guess there's some things that over just my whole life I've just come to accept, and this last week I started to have a little more awareness than in the usual, and I'll give you some examples. And sometimes I notice, like last week there was a meeting where a man spoke really loudly and disagreed with the process, and he spoke really loudly about how we should do the process, and there was a woman running it, and she said, nope, that's not how we're going to do it, we're going to do it this way. And in the past I would have let the man, he's loud and he has a better idea than me, it doesn't mean it's a better idea because he said it loudly and conviction. And then the other thing I started to notice is my daughter plays softball. She's really into it, and we go to tons of games and tournaments over the weekends, and I noticed that softball's all girls and the coaches are always men. the head coach is a man, the assistant coach is a man, they're all men, and they yell at the girls, and the girls don't play well when they get yelled at. And my daughter's coach happens to be a woman, and I started to notice the difference in how she speaks to the girls. And there's that old saying that girls need to feel well to play well, boys need to play good to feel good, girls need to feel good to play well, that kind of saying. So I think I can apply that in my adult life as well. When I don't feel good about myself, I don't perform well, and yelling at me doesn't make it better.
Thank you.
So it's just opened my eyes to some things I haven't really been seeing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'd never heard that phrase before. That
I might have said it a little wrong, but something
no,
like
no, it totally makes sense. Anything else? Anybody wants to weigh in with?
So for me, I spent a lot of time in college in women's studies, Indian literature studies, stuff like that, things outside of the normal path, because all of my courses were flooded by men. I was the only female in almost all my courses. So I took these other courses to feel more connected to my gender and more connected to the artistic side of me. And so this week I've been spending a lot of time going, what happened to that? What happened to that girl? And not that I was a girl, because I was in my 20s when I went to college, but what happened to that? And then where am I now? When back then I wanted to achieve so much. So thinking of that over the weekend, I mean, it totally consumed me over the weekend. I had solved something at work on Friday night, so my mind was free to think about anything. So the whole book consumed me. And then going into this week so far, I've actually been able to take those opportunities that I wanted in my 20s and apply them. I've talked about the power concept to some of my male colleagues, and they never thought of it that way too. I wouldn't call them feminine at all, but if we're talking that power over is masculine and power to is feminine, if that's how we're going to define this,
Right.
A lot of them have stepped down from their management roles lately because they felt that they were powering over people and they don't like it. So when we were talking about the power to, they were going, oh, you know what, I wish I would have had that perspective before I stepped down, because that's totally different. So it's really interesting that it applies across both genders. And then the other thing is, I've been more aware this week in my leadership opportunities. I didn't realize how much I was leading my work cell, and make sure we get this done. Let's try and do this. And then today I had an opportunity to mentor one of the SDETs and get something done. So it's brought awareness that, look, these are the opportunities I was looking for in my 20s, and look, I have them. I just didn't realize I had them.
Cool. That's cool. That's very cool. So I also want to ask, are there things that we've been talking about that you might find that cause you cognitive dissonance, or things you disagree with, or anything you want to challenge, because that only makes me think better, and I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I really liked, I know she's not here, but Renee's made a comment about, so it was in response, I think, to the social media where, Gloria, you talked about the show Veep, and you said it infuriated you that she was this bumbling idiot, and, she's a woman, and they portray her as kind of not too bright. And when you were saying that, I remember thinking, gosh, I love that show. I think it's so funny. And I love that show because she seems so real to me, and I actually looked at it totally different. I thought, wow, she's a woman just like me, and she's human, and she makes mistakes, and yeah, and she happens to be leading a country. And I just thought that was actually really cool. And I disagreed with your opinion at that point. And then Renee made a comment about, we shouldn't assume that just because the media is portraying a woman to be not on top of her game, that we're all going to follow in that path, and it's just entertainment. It's just entertainment.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like the days in high school when I hung out with the losers, and my mom's like, you're going to become a loser if you hang out with the losers. And I was always like, no, it doesn't mean I'm going to become like them just because I'm with, friends with them or hanging out with them. I know who I am. It's just entertainment.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's good. That's good when you can separate those two things out. I will have to say that I think that Veep has gotten better. I hadn't watched it in quite a while, and I watched an episode of it recently, and it just looked to me like the whole character had gotten to be more mature and better. And I mean, obviously, comedy is comedy, and but when you look at the data, what you see is that it really does have a tremendous impact. And when you see those same images over and over and over again, and every time there's a female character, no matter who she is, she's ditzy and not behaving appropriately, it starts to take its toll. And conversely, when we see female characters that exhibit leadership characteristics, we begin to see ourselves as people who can do that. So it does have an impact, but clearly you have to be an intelligent consumer of media, and that's part of the point, is be aware and be an intelligent consumer. Know what you want to buy and what you don't want to buy.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of political shows, there's a new one. It's called Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State is female, and they're showing the balance that she has to make between her kids and her job and her male supervisor, who's just out of control. He wants to control everything. So it's actually very interesting that I didn't like Veep, and the reason why I didn't like it is because I thought she was a bumbling doof when it first started. And I don't like those shows, whether they're men characters or female characters. So it had nothing to do with the gender. I don't like the shows where, if it's a movie and I'm going to watch, that's different. You have to be in that mood. But ongoing shows where the characters don't evolve, I don't get into those. But so it's interesting that on primetime on the network TV that we actually do have a political show with a woman as Secretary of State. So if you can, check that out, because I'd like to hear your feedback on that later.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I have not had a chance to watch it. I'm actually not much of a television watcher, except True Confessions. I watch The Big Bang Theory like 5 sessions a night. I'm like crazy about The Big Bang Theory, which does have a few stereotypes in it too. So.
Right, and I actually stopped watching that because none of the characters were evolving. I'm like, the characters need to evolve, or you lose me real quick.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So.
Good point.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for bringing that up. And any other issues that are like that are sort of like, not quite so sure about this for somebody?
Well, I was talking to one of my coworkers who's also in the course, who's not here at the moment, but I will speak as a third party. We were actually talking about the book, and she was a little offended by the Sarah Palin comment. Well, even Sarah Palin could, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but if you could enlighten me, or maybe talk about that a bit. Even Sarah Palin could do this, or she thinks it's wrong. Or, I don't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what. Actually don't know exactly what she might have been referring to. But I first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the evolution of the book.
Yeah.
The evolution of the book was from my having discovered that although women could now run for office and win as easily, or it would be as easy or as difficult as it is for men, there was really no difference. But the problem was that women weren't running, and that was what propelled me to start studying why, and took me into this whole obsession with women's relationship with power, and that's what led me into writing the book. And so I actually started with a political frame, and needless to say, in my past life, my past professional life with Planned Parenthood, I was deeply involved in politics, and it will not come as any surprise to anybody that Sarah Palin's politics are clearly not very in favor of women's reproductive rights, and even as a matter of fact, not even in favor of the Paycheck Fairness Act and things like that would give women more economic security. So as I look back on the book, and when I read back through it now, I realize that very often I'm working with people who have very different political philosophies than I do. So I'm just sort of prepared to deal with that. The question often comes up to me. I've often been asked by the media, "Do you think Sarah Palin is a feminist because she says she's a feminist?" And I always say, well, anybody can call themselves anything they want to. It's their privilege. But in my view, if you don't support at least those things that would enable women to have an equal playing field, I don't care what you call yourself, you're not really a feminist. So I'm on record saying that so many times. It's not something I could or would ever back away from. And I noticed that, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't even remember who it was, but somebody listed Sarah Palin as one of the women they admired, and I thought, okay, she's going to kind of take issue with what I had to say.
Maybe it was her. I don't remember reading that, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's fine. I'll own it. And you know, I'll own it, and I can certainly accept the variety of opinions on it because I hear them a lot all the time.
I had a reflection just also about the first week. I had a really hard time coming up. Sorry, someone's phone. I had a really hard time coming up with women that have inspired me. And I started to think about over the years, and I know you were maybe looking for like famous women, but I just had no one on my list. And then I started to think of my personal life, and I feel like I've been paving the way myself as a working mom, and not really having many people that I could follow in their footsteps. You know, I had one that I mentioned in there. That was just one in the 16 years I've been working.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been hard, but you know, I make it work. I take every day, day by day, and I kind of wish I had some more role models there. As my kids now get a little older, it gets harder as they get older. I think they're involved in a lot of activities. So
I agree. Yeah. Other experiences with that?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I really had a hard time coming up with, you know, people that I admired, and I'm more of a today kind of person, I guess. Right now, I'm focusing on the people that inspire me or the people that I work with, and you know, all you folks that are here in this course and helping me learn. So, honestly, I don't think that there's been any one person that's impacted me enough that I felt changed my direction in life. So I think that maybe
same
that's
here.
it. Yeah.
I had the opposite.
I
had too many. I had the opposite problem. But I mean, I really came from a lack of role models and lack of success. So I sought it.
Yeah.
I sought for it. So I think it's just a different growing up phase. I actually, limiting it to 3 was really hard for me. I was like, oh, this, no, wait, no,
3.
3.
It's funny.
I think it's just that in what I grew up for, I was looking for help and mentorship, and so I found it in different places.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, you didn't have to follow the rules exactly.
Well,
no, it is hard. I'm personally, I am not much of I always have a hard time with that one because I'm not that much of a sort of, I guess, hero worshiper kind of a person. I'm more inclined to see the strengths and weaknesses in everybody that I know. One thing that has really blown me away, though, is in fact how many people, and this has been consistent throughout all of the 3 courses now that I've taught of this, or 3 sections that I've now taught of this course, how many people do first talk about their mothers or their grandmothers or somebody in their family, which I think is quite touching, actually. And I just, you know, so that has surprised me somehow. I don't know why. I don't know what I expected, but that's been an interesting thing to see to me. So shall we move on to what's happening next?
Sure.
Okay, all right. So this next week, and I can see that some of you are already deep into it anyway, but you know, I would say that week 2 is really in some respects, the hardest slog because we do go through, in week 1 we talked about the first 2 power tools, and in week 2 we talk about all the rest of the 9. So we talk about 7 of the power tools, and some of them are quite counterintuitive, particularly the ones around controversy, chaos, and convictions, and often that takes a lot of discussion. So I'm hoping that we have a lot of good discussion about that and find out experiences that people have had. I I put them all together like that mostly because I really wanted to have week 3 open for the discussion of negotiation, where we start using a lot of the different power tools, and then week 4 is more or less the where it all comes together when we do the personal leadership action plan. So sometime this week I'll probably go ahead and post take a look. You can start working on it if you want to, but you don't have to. But this is what we're going to do in the 4th week of the personal leadership action plan, because that's really where you use all of the tools to solve a problem or plan how you're going to achieve a particular goal. So I think one of the things that has happened over the course of the few years since I wrote No Excuses is that while the power tools in their concepts remain exactly as they were, inform a complete philosophy, at least for me, about what it takes to be an effective leader. I think that every day I see something going on in the news, or some example that I see with people that I know or that I don't know but that I observe in some way or another, new examples of how each of those power tools can be used. So I try to keep adding fresh information, and I really encourage you to, if you observe something going on around you that is an illustration of any of the power tools, that you take a moment maybe and just share that with people, because I think these are things that evolve every single day. There is new research, there's new material, there's a new way of dealing with it, or there's something that maybe says, okay, this is kind of old hat and we need to move on to the next phase of it. And I will be interested to see how that conversation goes this week. There is a particular exercise that deals with, since all of you are with GoDaddy, this may be of particular interest. There's a particular exercise that deals with the impact for, and this gets back to the media question, but the impact of seeing women who work in the I think it was physics, if I'm not mistaken, that NPR study, I believe it was physics, and that literally in a community where there were a great number of women who were visible, who worked in the field of physics, there was an inordinately large number of girls who took physics, said they were going to have careers in physics, and it's very applicable to the constant stories we hear about women not staying in the STEM field or not going into the STEM field. And it really is it's a powerful demonstration of the value of, if you can see it, you can be it. So that's one thing I just would flag for all of you. And the rest of it is pretty straightforward this week. There's a great segment on storytelling as a leadership skill. And I think this is something that I have come to appreciate even more since I wrote the book. And I did an interview with a woman, Natalie Molina Nino, who had a successful corporate career and then left to go get her master's in storytelling, because she was so convinced that was the missing piece in leadership in the corporate world. So that's something that might be of particular interest to you. Caitlin, what am I missing out on here? Is there anything particular?
And you're right, it was physics.
It was physics. Thank you.
I think for week 2, another interesting exercise for you all and just everybody in this course will be the personal exercise to sit like a man. We've had a few women in the circle in the course have tried it so far, and it's just really, I think it's just interesting to, again, it kind of raises that awareness, Rachel, that you were talking about, just being more aware of different things. Then you're going to love this exercise. We just ask you to sit like a man, and if you're really brave, to ask a man to sit like a woman, and to just see the biases and what, the automatic assumptions that people come up with. So that's also in this week. It's just something, it's just a personal exercise, but I think that's always really interesting. I remember reading an article that talked about how women try to make themselves physically smaller, like in any way that they can, including how we sit, right? Like we cross our legs, or, whereas men, they'll sit, wide shoulders. I'm like spreading, they'll spread their legs out, and it kind of exudes this confidence and this relaxation. So it's just interesting. I think, you'll find that exercise really interesting.
Trying it now.
There you go. You go, girl.
I always cross my legs. I'm crossing them right now.
I know. I was too, and then I stopped.
It's comfortable, and no one's even looking at me. I'm all alone.
If you look around, also what you see is men tend to be taught.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Anusha's joining us.
Yeah, I knew.
Oh, good.
For maybe a few minutes?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
The new is from Iowa. She's in Phoenix this week for Grace Hopper. So.
Oh, tell us.
Oh yeah, I'm going to that too.
Yeah. We'll all be there tomorrow as well.
I'll see you guys there.
Right?
I angled to get an invitation, but I didn't get one.
Oh.
I angled to get an invitation to speak. I was not to GoDaddy, but to what is the organization?
Anita Borg.
Anita Borg. Yeah, Anita Borg. Yeah. I was more than hinting, but it didn't work this year. But I'm going to try next year because it sounds so fascinating.
Hey, Gloria. So you said you petitioned to get an invite, and then you kind of said, but not to GoDaddy. Are you interested in coming to one of our GD WIT event, GoDaddy Women in Technology?
Yes, I am. I would love to sometime. And in fact, we've discussed it a little bit with Stacy Bennett. I don't know if she's somebody that you all know, but Stacy and I have discussed it a little bit, but she's been rather busy, and we haven't concluded a conversation.
Yeah,
So.
actually, Mary's a member as well of the course, Mary Bogdanoff. She and I are Scottsdale GDWIT members, and we can in our next core meeting, we aren't having one tomorrow because of the Grace Hopper conference, but in our next core meeting, we can suggest that you come.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I'm in Phoenix off and on. I usually 3, 4, or 5 times a year. So,
Yeah.
And usually for 2 or 3 weeks at a time when I'm there. So.
Great.
Yeah, I'd love to sometime. It would be great. I really enjoyed all the interactions that we've had with GoDaddy. Have totally appreciated the partnership with GoDaddy on the Close the Gap app, which you all will get before the course is over. And so hoping to continue and to build on that. It's really been terrific.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah.
See, get and run with
Good
it.
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, there you are. Okay.
I'm going to run with it.
Yeah, they do them randomly, so we just happened to grab it.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw the Hangout was happening, so we came in here and
Awesome.
turned it on.
It's great. So just to bring you up to date, we were talking about what we've done the first week, and talking about what's going to be happening, as many people have already jumped into what we're doing in the second week, which is mostly around the 7 of the 9 power tools, having done the first 2 power tools in the first week. And so just, do you have any questions? Were there any things on your mind or reflections from the first week?
I am sort of slow in starting, so today evening is my day. I started watching, but today is my day to finish all my homework and getting up on the speed. So
Great, wonderful. Well, we're glad to have you, and glad that you jumped in when you did, and you'll be able to catch up very easily, I'm sure. So no rush, no worry.
yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. So one thing I'm about to, I've been writing an email to the whole class about, and we'll get it sent out by tomorrow, is something that I've been thinking a lot about and would like to have a little hive mind thinking on, and that is what happens as more women do achieve levels of power and influence. What do we need to watch out for? What do we need to make sure doesn't change about what we bring and what we have? And the article that triggered this for me is something that I had bookmarked a few months ago, and I went back and reread it today, and it's some very interesting research that includes a bit of brain science, which I sometimes believe and sometimes don't, about how the more power people have, the less empathy they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the great attributes, the valuable attributes that women bring, that seems to be the very thing that raises the intelligence level of groups that have more women, that helps companies make more money because of having more women in upper leadership, is the empathy factor, the ability to sort of read people and bring the whole self in and have a little understanding about what's happening with relationships. That seems to be, or at least that's one of the theories about why these things happen, why these correlations are occurring: more women, better decision making, more money, etc. And so if the data is showing that the more power people have, the less empathy they have, what does that mean for how we should be thinking about women moving into positions of more power? How can we make sure to inculcate and support the very attributes that are making women the sort of the secret sauce for successful companies right now? Love to have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting statement. I actually deal with that with the TAC organization, that people go, well, don't you care? And I'm like, of course I care, but my job is to make decisions based on the business, not on my personal emotions and how it affects me and if I'm going to cry at home later. But it's something that I struggle with in everything with that, being the president. My job is to make decisions based purely on what's good for the business. I can't bring emotion into it.
Yeah, I think, empathy at that point, though, is saying, I understand what you're going through.
Right.
I'm making this decision purely based on business, right?
Right, and so that it's almost like I don't have the freedom to be empathetic.
Right.
Empathic?
Yeah.
Empathetic?
That.
So but here at work, obviously, we're making decisions based on the business all the time, but I don't feel as responsible for the business, which is, but maybe I should.
Maybe you are. You don't feel that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We all are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but back to the question: how do we, as we grow as women in leadership, how do we keep that?
Well, it's one of your strengths,
right?
right? You can't lose it. She's really good at it, actually.
Michelle embarrasses me all the time.
I'm good at that.
Yes. Actually, Michelle used to work for me. So when I first met Michelle, I was her QA manager, and I was her manager for quite some time. And
not long enough.
Not long.
I didn't learn enough before I got voted.
That's nice. I actually, and she says booted, but kind of.
She booted me.
I kicked her off the team, but not really.
She did.
I did. I talked to people because she needed to move on. She was beyond what she was doing on my team. Yeah. And I talked to my boss and I said, you have got to find another place for Michelle. She needs to grow, and she's not growing, with what she's doing right now. So basically shot myself in the foot, but I thought, it was for her.
Sweet.
So that's why she says stuff like that.
That's outstanding.
But that's the truth.
Was it hard to do?
No. I'm a kind of take it as it comes person as far as work, and the work's always going to be there. But I thought about what a difference it would really make, in her life. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some of those pushes myself, quite a few.
Yeah.
And sometimes at the time I wasn't grateful for it, and then after the fact I was very grateful for it.
Oh, I'm grateful. Don't take my sarcasm.
No, I know you two are kidding with each other. I'm just speaking from my own experience. Times that I was pushed to do things more than I thought I was ready to do, and then I was always glad.
Oh yeah, I was done.
Yeah,
I was done.
Right. Yeah.
And can I just say, I think, Melissa, exactly what you did for Michelle, that's what women in top-tier leadership positions can do in order to kind of maintain that quote-unquote empathy. It reminds me of that Madeleine Albright quote of, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I think women in those leadership roles, in management roles, that's, in my opinion, the main thing that they can do is be allies to other women and to be sponsors and mentors to other women in an authentic way.
Yeah.
I think Daddy has that culture though, because after she booted me, then I got booted again, and the reason is because in the role that I landed in, it was a great role, but because of my other skill sets, I didn't get to achieve what I was supposed to be there for. So they actually moved me again, and now I get to do that. And at that time, I had a male manager. So I think it's a culture that's evolving here at GoDaddy, but in the beginning, we didn't have that, absolutely. I think the strides that GoDaddy's made, we're actually striving more towards engagement of the employee and making sure that they can grow. And it's global, it's not gender specific. So.
One of the other things that I tried to do with I was the one female QA manager in this group, right? So when I did something, I tried to explain to them why and why it made sense, because a lot of times I got, questioned about why would we do that? And here's why, and here's what makes sense for the future, right? And if somebody's not happy doing what they're doing and they can thrive somewhere else, they're going to be a better employee all around, and they're going to give, it may not be in our area, but they're going to give back to the company, and we're going to see those benefits, and maybe then we get someone else that we can help and evolve in that same way.
And I think that rubbed off.
Hopefully that some of that did, they've actually, started thinking about what they're doing.
Right, kind of back to Rachel's,
doing things.
If the girls don't feel good, they don't play well.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing.
GoDaddy female managers, at least they have empathy and they are good managers. Yeah. Right? They lead good in a friendlier way, so you get things done easily.
Right.
Just to go back to Caitlin's point, also, there's often for women taking things personally more than men do. And so sometimes, actually, both men and women are reluctant to give women straightforward feedback. There are studies that have found that also, that maybe they're afraid we'll cry, maybe they're afraid, they don't know, there is a fear of how will women react if they're given negative feedback. But any feedback is useful feedback, generally speaking, and so I think Caitlin's point that the thing that the higher women are in an organization, the more opportunities they have and responsibility to give feedback and help other women know when it's time to move on. Give the feedback if it's positive. Give the feedback in a constructive way if there's something needs to change. Right. And so learning to do that without fear, learning to do that as being matter of fact, and learning to both give and receive that kind of feedback is a critically important piece of what I think is women's learning process right now. And the men are going to have to get over it if we cry sometimes, I think. Rachel, are you still there? Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good.
I was
lost the
eating.
video.
I started to eat a little, so I put myself on mute and I turned my camera off so you didn't have to see me chew.
That's all right. No problem. No problem.
It's dinner time here.
I was afraid we had lost you.
No, I'm here. I was listening.
Oh dear. So, does any of that ring true to you? What we were just talking about?
About feedback and being hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's all how it's conveyed. I've definitely gotten upset about feedback at my last job, and I guess at the time I think I cried, and I hate crying at work. But you know what? I think it upset me the most was because I think deep down I knew it was true, and that's why it hurt. You know, because when you're hearing something that in your heart you know is true, that hurts more than the things that you don't believe in. So
that old mirror, seeing that mirror telling you the truth is not fun sometimes. So, are there any questions about what we're doing in week 2?
We're reading your book, right? That's the main thing, and then answering when I first felt power.
Yep.
I think you went over I have to look at it again. I don't remember.
No. Just I mean that's fine. I just wondered if there was anything that was troubling anyone or questions that anybody had, anything that wasn't clear. That's it. I mean it's a pretty straightforward trip through the power tools. And Rachel, since you had made the comment about media, you might be particularly interested. I made reading the media research paper optional because it is long and somewhat academic. But given your comments in that vein, you might actually be particularly interested in taking a look at that.
We had a speaker come to GoDaddy. Do you guys remember? Obviously, Melissa, you probably were involved. I can't remember her name, but she talked all about women in the media. She's with. Do you remember that? It was like 2-3 months ago.
Can't think.
What was her name again? She worked on the organization that I don't know, but it was all about what you were saying, Gloria, about how there was a study they did they measured how many female characters were in cartoons, and they talked about how that starts to shape young girls from a very young age, and then the girls that were in the cartoons were very what's the word, like over dramatized characters of like either really girly girls or they weren't just average normal and they weren't
and tend to be
I can't remember her name.
Tend to be hypersexualized and objectified and and so if you think about it, just drop me a note because I'd be interested to know. I like to just look at the research. It's also really interesting to look at the evolution of Wonder Woman, because the original Wonder Woman, who was originally drawn in I think 1941 or 1942, was clearly designed to be very intentionally designed to be the female archetype of what a superhero would be if a superhero was kind and good and didn't kill people in order to save the good guys and get rid of the bad guys, and her physical appearance was much less objectified and sexualized. And then if you look at it decade by decade, it got more and more sexualized and less that strong woman. And now she's sort of back to being what she was supposed to be. So, the art imitates life. That's just the way it is. And as you see what was happening in the culture during those decades, that's what was happening. And so that's another interesting tale, just to look at the history of Wonder Woman and the different ways she's been portrayed through the years.
Yeah, it was Madeline Denono, Rachel, she's a CEO of the Gina Davis Institute.
Yeah, the Gina Davis Institute.
Oh, from Gina
Okay.
Davies.
I was just trying to look it
Okay,
up at the
all right,
same time.
okay, all right. I just went to a program of theirs. I probably heard her, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, thanks. That's
Very informative and enlightening.
Yeah.
Really.
All right. Well, so I think, I apologize for the late start. We have had almost an hour now, and I just want to take a round around the room and see. Open mic, anything. You can talk about anything. We've got a couple more minutes. If there's anything anybody wants to talk about.
I have a comment about the format of the class, not
Okay.
the content.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys are having the same experience, but I find it hard to when I first log in, I don't know where to go. I don't know where the latest information is. I know my coworker who's taking the class said the same thing, and so it's just not quite sure when I first go in. Where do I look at?
Is it that I was not sure too? But that's my bad. I started late, but like the latest information, I wanted to read some comments. So is it like the topmost is the current one?
Not what I've seen.
Yeah, Caitlin, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Set up.
Yeah, so how the website is set up is the latest activity is all on that main screen. It's kind of like your news feed for Facebook or something, if you think of it that way. So if there was a post back from week 1, but somebody just commented on it, 5 minutes ago, that would show up at the top. So as I said in the course video, if you want to go chronologically through the course, you would just go to the left-hand side where it says Workshop 1, Workshop 2, Workshop 3, Workshop 4, and that is all of the course activities, the reading, the discussion activities, and the exercises are listed there chronologically. So it kind of just depends on how you want to experience the course, but I would recommend going to those workshops, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the side.
One thing I have found is that sometimes if I'm writing a comment and another person is writing a comment at the same time in the same thread, that the comment that I had intended to be a reply to something ends up being bumped down further, so that I'm not always sure that it's obvious whose comment I'm commenting on. So I've taken to trying to make sure that I use the person's name in order to resolve any questions about that. But that's one thing that I do find, and that makes it a little hard sometimes to follow. But yeah, but I would concur with Caitlin that generally speaking, if you want to make sure that that things are sorted out, it's probably best to use the workshop format. If what you want to just do is have a quick look at you want to just have a quick look at what's the latest, then go to the feed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the chat on the side, that's just kind of if you have a question and somebody's online, because that's just a real-time type thing. So does that clarify?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like right now when I go to latest activity, all I see is welcome Rachel. Like that's not the latest. That was the first thing I did. So it's still kind of confusing. But I agree. Like if you just click on the workshop 1. Then you can go to each of those things. And then I was also thinking it would be like Facebook, I guess, where if I wanted to see all the comments written by a specific person, I thought if I clicked on them I could see it all, but it doesn't do that.
No, the software that we use,
But we'll get through it. It's fine.
Because I started late, so I just wanted to read the introduce yourself. Yeah. But then
So does that make sense to you, Anu? Like the to go to the side with the workshops?
Okay. Yeah, and then probably go through each of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that.
Cool.
Yeah, all I can say is when we started out, we were using ASU's Blackboard system, and everybody really hated that one. So we we quickly moved everything over to Mighty Bell, and I guess with any technology, there's no perfect system. But
Exactly.
this is good feedback, and one piece of feedback we can give to them. And one of the good things about working with Mighty Bell is that it's a small new company, and so they're very quick to try to integrate feedback that they get. And I think we should give them that feedback, Caitlin, that people would like to be able to access everything that a particular person has said.
Yeah.
All of us technical people from here at GoDaddy would give you some sort of feedback.
Sorry.
Oh dear.
And seriously, if you all, especially working at a tech company, if you ever have any feedback, we have incredibly close connections with Mighty Bell. They're one of our stronger partners. So just email them or message them to me. They're always looking to make improvements. So don't be shy.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I just have here's one revelation for you, which is that we just put a thermostat on the heating and air conditioning unit in my office / guest room, and and the thermostat seems to be going to only heat tonight. It is now 85 degrees in this office, and as much as I love you all, I really want to open my door and get some fresh air. So if there are no further questions or comments,
oh my goodness,
I will bid everyone a great good night, and thank you all so much. It's really fun to have these moments with you in what's almost like face-to-face or almost like being in person, and I really appreciate it. And so actually I'm going to just ask one more quick question, which is, should we keep doing these? Because I never know if they're really valuable to people or not.
I think it'll be valuable.
I think so, and we're gonna spur some more Scottsdale people to get a bigger room.
Okay, all right, rope them.
Iowa.
Great.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have another one next week then.
Okay. All right.
Perhaps.
Sure. Why not? All right. Well, thank you all. Have a great night, and we'll be talking to you soon, online and maybe back at the Google Hangout.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.